Well, welcome back, everyone. Today we have our first repeat customer. I am joined once again by Reverend Dr. Paul Lumbu Kayumba. Doctor, thank you for joining me once again.
Yes,
This
thank you. Thank you very much.
should be
Correct.
fun.
It's good
Hopefully,
to
we
be with you.
can finish off what we started last time.
That's correct. Thank you.
Yes. Quick introduction on you. Same thing as last time. You had a Master of Biblical Studies at Northwest University, Master of Theological Studies at George Whitfield.
Mhm.
Correct.
Correct.
You are a professor of Latin and theology at ACU. You are head of the research committee at the Senate of ACU, and you are the pastor of Christ Church Lusaka.
Yes, and I've got a PhD from Northwest University.
There you go.
Yes.
Fantastic. All right. Well, we'll kind of pick up where we left off,
That's right.
which last time we were talking about equality. So, in your mind, what is equality, and what's the difference between equality and equity? Those words sound similar, and they mean somewhat similar things. What's the difference between those two?
Yeah, so from a biblical reformed standpoint, equality is rooted in the understanding that all human beings created in the image of God. And they're all given the same role to represent God in a certain way. And therefore, because they are all created in God's image, so they possess inherent dignity and worth and value. So based on that, all human beings are equal, in equal when it comes to worth and value and also dignity. However, we know that when sin came into the world, has distorted this notion of equality. So equity recognizes that sin has introduced inequalities and injustice into the world, affecting individuals and groups differently. We know from the biblical standpoint that equality in the eyes of God remains unchanged. We all, in the eyes of God, we all have the same dignity, the same worth, and the same value. But equity acknowledges the need to address these disparities by providing what we get from the book of Micah, chapter 6 and 8, providing justice, mercy to the marginalized and oppressed.
Okay. So equity is more everyone has the same outcome, or everyone is that communism, or is equity something else?
Yeah, so equity in this sense is recognizing that there's disparity in terms of how people have distorted the whole idea and the notion of the equality. And I'm going to address this probably in your next question, which is not the same as sameness. It's not the same as we are same. We're different for sure, but in terms of worth and value and dignity, we are equal because of the fact that we are all created as images, as God image.
Aha. Okay. So because we're humans, we're all on a level playing field as far as we should all be treated with the same amount of respect.
That's right.
Correct? Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, that makes sense. And then last time we were talking about in Zambia, there's struggles with that, as there are in the West as well. In the West, women and men are often pushed as being viewed as equal, and not only being viewed as equal, but actually being viewed as the same.
Yes.
So men and women are seen as, or they would like you to believe that men and women are the same creatures. We have the same instinctual drives. We have the same purpose for our lives. The same things we should be looking to do. But what's the danger of that approach?
Yeah, let me bring about two dangers of trying to push the idea of sameness rather than equality, because the biblical idea is that of equality, not that of sameness. We are different. We're created differently, and so the danger of pushing for women and men to be viewed as the same. No, it lies first and foremost. The first one is in the rejection of God's design and purpose in creating them uniquely male and female. So that's the first danger. So we will fall into that danger of rejecting God's design and purpose for how God has created us in a unique way. The second danger will be that of undermining the complementary roles and responsibilities that God has assigned to each gender. Because we tend to think and push and advocate for the idea that we are same, therefore we don't actually see the complementary roles. It will undermine that God has given and assigned different genders, different roles to play in a society and family altogether. So those two dangers, the first one, rejection of God's design and purpose for each particular gender, and the second one is undermining, slowly destroying the complementary roles that God has assigned to each one of us. You see, so and that will lead to confusion and discord, and also a neglect of God-given differences that God has given each particular gender, and also strengths that God has given.
Why did we fall into that trap? How did we get there?
Yeah, so as I said, it's a human nature to reject God design. So the truth of God's word, the world has developed the whole idea of rejecting God's truth, falling into the idea of relativism. What is true to you may not necessarily be true to you. We don't have an absolute truth at the moment. One of the reasons why we fall into that danger, is because we have put ourselves in a position where we don't actually believe in absolute truth that can be a standard against which we can measure everything else that we think and everything else that we believe. If we tend to believe that the Word of God is absolute truth, is the standard principle we can measure everything else, then we can get back to the Bible, and the Bible help us to see the difference between equality and the fact that God has created us differently and to play different roles in society and family.
And that's because we have this relativism because, we're humans and we want to rebel from God's standard. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've rebelled, and the tendency is to keep on rebelling and going far away from the Creator, thinking that we can manage our own lives and becoming our own gods by deciding what is right and wrong, and then forgetting that the decision of what is right and wrong is for God. It God who determines what is right and what is wrong. Now, the human tendency is that of usurping, getting the power and the place of God by thinking that we can create, we can determine what is God, what is good and what is right. That has started way back in the Garden of Eden.
Mm-hmm.
Up until now, you see that human beings, they still want to get away from that particular principle of God being the only one who determines what is right and what is wrong.
Yeah, and obviously we've seen the West struggle with that.
Yeah.
The outplayings of that, which is we have LGBTQ and trans people
Yes.
and abortion and all of that
Yes.
horribleness.
Mm.
Do Africans struggle with that to the same extent?
Yes, because of the fact that we all fallen and broken human beings, and but much of the negative influence of that things have not yet really manifested in Africa. Of course, they are slowly being embraced because of the tendency which is in a human being of always rejecting the truth. So that possibility is there, but it's not a struggle at this particular time at a bigger scale.
Okay.
Yeah, but we're getting there in the sense that the nature of a human being is very distorted and is ready to embrace everything that is promoting human rather than God. And that possibility of falling into that trap is actually there. But as far as the effect and influence of the LGBTQ and stuff, like they've not yet really manifested. Also, probably because of the some of the values that we have as Africans. Values in our African traditional religions. It's not just negative things. There are so many positive things that have actually helped us as a shield and not to fall into what is happening in the West.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, the West is far too logical with their approach, I think. And having that spirituality, even if it does lead to some odd consequences, as far as cause and effect, the views about cause and effect, it does, well, like when you acknowledge that there is a spirit world, then you have, things start to make a lot more sense, and you look at things in a much more, ironically, a much more logical way, considering that's how the world actually works.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and we forget our reason is fallen. So what we think is
True.
logical is it may not be logical at all, because sin did not leave a particular portion of a human being untouched.
yeah.
Every single part of a human being is fallen, including our reason. Although we think that we logical in the way we think, we just running away from the logic itself from
Yeah.
God.
And that was the first sin, was the our pride in we can figure this out
Yes,
on
that's
our
right.
own,
That's right.
and it continues to
Correct.
live on strong today.
Mm.
However, in Africa, and apparently I know people who went up north towards the Copper Belt, and they said that it's much worse there. But women are seen as lesser creatures. Why is that?
Yeah, so in many African societies, that perception of women as lesser creatures is the reason. If you ask the reason why is that, I think it stems from the distortion of biblical teaching on gender roles. Once the biblical teaching on gender roles is distorted, and so one of the consequences is viewing other gender, the other part, the women, as lesser creatures. So the Bible is very clear when it comes to the gender roles and relationships. So moving away from that is one of the reasons why we've fallen into that. From a biblical reformed perspective, women are equal, as I've already alluded to, in dignity, in worth before God. But from the Bible, again, we know that although human beings, women and men, they're all equal, they've got dignity, they've got value and worth, but we've been created differently to also play different roles in society and family. If we get back to that very foundational truth on what the Bible teaches about equality and dignity, I think we will probably be able not to fall into the trap of viewing the other gender as lesser. The reason is simple. It's because we've rebelled against the truth of God's word. The Bible is very clear on gender roles. The Bible is very clear on dignity that has been given to each particular gender. So the reason why we've gone to that level of considering women as lesser creatures is just because we've gone beyond what the scripture teaches about gender roles.
Yeah, but it seems to be that throughout history, that is often the default settings that people fall back on, is that the men are greater and the women are less. Why do we continue to fall into that temptation?
Yeah, you see, sin is is ugly and is very contagious. It spreads out like cancer, and then it's the fact that we are fallen creatures, and the tendency is and has always been that of moving away from the truth. Not just in Africa, but it's a human problem. It's a human problem everywhere, trying to get ahead of another one, trying to view others as useless, as nothing, as worthless. It is always like that, and that has come because of moving away from the truth of God's word. It's not just in Africa. So when you read history, you will see that it has been there in the Roman culture, in the Greco-Roman world. At some point, the tendency of men is that of viewing women as lesser creatures. There are so many other historical and social cultural factors to that, but the main underlying factor is the brokenness and fallenness of human beings, and that selfish tendency and attitude in us of trying always to be ahead of others and undermining others and being on top. That would be the underlying issue, but there are so many other, of course, social and historical reasons for that.
Right. Yeah. It seems. Does it have anything to do with the fact that women are, as a general rule, weaker than men? Um, Obviously, survival of the fittest is an idea that Charles Darwin proposed first, but that kind of, the idea that he proposed, he kind of spelled it out, but it seems to have been there throughout history. Is that?
Yeah,
Does that have anything to do with it or no?
That could be one of the reasons, but the underlying fact, as I've already alluded it, is that it's a human nature. It's a sinful human nature that would always
Just trying to exploit.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the underlying factor in my view.
So do Zambians view weaker men like, or maybe men who are more prone to be taken advantage of? Are they taken advantage of more?
Yes. I think it is part of. I've been in many parts of Africa, and I've never been outside of the continent. I will explain this a little later. And it's something that I've seen almost everywhere. It has become like it's not an African problem. It's not a Zambian problem per se. It's a human problem. And then it has expressed itself so strongly in Africa and in Zambia, maybe because of some of the reasons pertaining to development and the lack of exposure somehow. And it's true. You'll see that viewing weaker men as lesser creatures, it really goes against the biblical principles.
Mm-hmm.
And the biblical principles we get from Galatians 6:2, for instance, that of principles of compassion, principles of mutual respect. We go against that, as we see that in Philippians chapter 2 and verse 3. But from a biblical reform perspective, all individuals, regardless of strength and weaknesses, they are valued and loved by God. And this is very clear from the Bible. So while men are called to lead and provide for their families, this does not diminish the worth or dignity of those who may perceive to be weaker. But the fact that in Zambia and in Africa and elsewhere, we tend to view those who are weaker like lesser creatures or something like that, it is again come back to the same underlying factor of the human beings always wanting to undermine others because of the nature of sin in us.
Because we're selfish individually, and so we want to get ahead of everyone else.
Yes, because probably somehow because of opportunities, because of exposure, we've been already put in a position of being of favor than others. Then we tend to think that everyone else who has not been there before, they are lesser creatures or something like that, And again, it comes to the fact that we are selfish. We want to promote ourselves. We want to become our small gods in our own eyes, and looking at others and down and undermining them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the famous question: how shall we then live? What do we do about it?
What? Fixing it?
Yes.
Yeah. So again, I've already alluded to this one. So addressing this perception of inferiority, it requires a very strong commitment.
Yes.
A commitment
yes.
to biblical teaching of one that emphasizes equality and value of all individuals before God. It's a great commitment. We need to get back there.
And it's a multi-generational commitment.
Yes, that's correct. It is. Galatians 3:28 explains very well on how we are in Christ Jesus. We are all one, regardless of the status, regardless of gender and sex. It should be a commitment back to scriptures, And this involves challenging cultural norms. We need to challenge our cultural norms and practices that discriminate against women, that marginalize weaker men, while promoting biblical principles as stipulated very well in Micah chapter 6 verse 8. And this is what it says: God has told you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice and to love kindness and walk humbly before God. That commitment should be there, but also we must be ready to challenge many of our cultural norms that they go against the principles of Scripture.
Okay. And so as far as the education of that, how do you go about teaching that to people, especially to a people who actively don't want that to be true? It's easier for the men to view women as lesser so they can spend their time not working and have the women do all the work. So how do you get men to start putting that into action?
Yeah, I think it has to start from the family setup. I think the family, is a conducive environment and a safe place to begin and and emphasize these principles from the word go. Before we leave our children to go outside of there in the society and get whatever understanding they may have, we need to challenge, because we are born and brought up in a particular culture that has got values. Of course, some values are not really biblical, some values are actually biblical, and then we should begin from the family setup to challenge what we've been passed on for many years and ask questions, critical questions of whether those are reflecting biblical principles or not. Starting from there, and then the next thing will be exposing our children to certain other realities that may be able to get out of their comfort zone and be able to follow what is really the ideal, as we can find it from the Bible. I think parents, they've got a very huge responsibility on that one, and also educators. We should start, and by relying on God as well, as we teach and we train and we inculcate and we insist, we trust that the Lord is going to work in people's lives. As many people as we have who are embracing the biblical ideas on these matters we are talking about, and so we will be able to transform cultures.
Yeah. How does Zambia, as they're seeking to transform their culture, avoid falling into the trap of feminism that the West has fallen into, the trap of equity, and instead stay on equality?
Fundamentally, it's the same answer that I've given to the previous question. To avoid falling into the trap of feminism, Zambia can uphold biblical principles on gender equality while rejecting ideologies that undermine God's design for marriage, undermines God's design for family and society. So there's something we need to uphold, and that is actually the biblical principles on these particular matters. And there's something we need to reject. We should reject ideologies that undermine God's design for marriage, family, and society. This includes the idea of promoting mutual respect and understanding and collaboration between men and women, recognizing their unique roles and responsibilities within the context of God's words. As we can see that in 1 Corinthians 11 to 12, even Ephesians 5:21, which actually says submitting to one another out of reverence to Christ. Submitting to one another out of reverence to Christ. So, answering shortly, your question is that we need to uphold something on the one hand and reject another thing on the other. And it's upholding the biblical principles on these matters, rejecting all these ideologies that come, and they are contradicting the scriptures. I think that way we should be able to stand firm and not be able to fall into the trap of feminism.
Yeah, that's helpful. Can I ask, how does the U.S. get out of that trap? Is it a similar answer to?
Probably yes. I think generally yes.
Yeah, you got to educate the kids. And
yes.
Fantastic.
Yes.
So obviously, one of the ways that equality plays itself out is in our day-to-day lives, in our work, and in our economics. So in the U.S., I've talked about it many times before, there's an economic safety net. I think I mentioned this to you last time. How does Zambia create that safety net for the people who are, seeking to make this country and this culture better by their hard work and diligence?
Yeah, though I may not be an expert in in economics. But Zambia can cultivate an economic safety net by, first of all, implementing social welfare programs. There are so many of them. Social welfare programs aimed at providing assistance to vulnerable populations such as the poor, the elderly, and the disabled. There are so many other. There are so many welfare programs like unemployment benefits, social insurance programs, social assistance programs, healthcare and pension schemes. All of these they should probably be on the agenda if we are to actually cultivate an economic safety net in Zambia. And this can include social insurance schemes, as I've already said, and employment benefit and targeted cash transfer programs. Additionally, the other thing we can probably do is investing in education, healthcare, and infrastructure that can create opportunities for economic empowerment and social mobility, reducing inequality and promoting a fair playing field for all citizens in Zambia. I think for me, this captures everything in terms of how we can be able to cultivate an economic safety net in Zambia.
Okay. And what kind of social? So you said social programs. What kind of thing are you? What do you mean by that?
Yes, there are so many social programs, which aimed at helping the disabled and those that may seem to be out of opportunities. There should be some social programs that will actually help people to always feel that we've been given equal opportunities.
Yeah.
Equal opportunities to thrive in life. There should be some programs that promote some skills, helping people to develop their own passions, the ambitions in life and things like that. So there are so many of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the U.S. has I think the way the U.S. does this is kind of, let's just dump money into a culture or, a continent.
Mm-hmm.
But that obviously isn't the correct way to do it, because
No.
you have to know where to put that money.
Yes.
$100,000 can go a lot farther than $1 million
Yes.
if you know how to use it.
Yes.
So how do you avoid the kind of, let's just throw money at it and hope something sticks?
You can come up with programs. Like, I can give you one specific one. Is like, you can come up. I've already seen that happening already in Zambia, which is something really worth really praising. I've seen already people putting money into some kind of educational development skills. They will pick young ladies and young men would want to develop skills in catering, for instance, or tailoring. Those kind of skills, they put money in there to educate people and eventually to give them some tools that they should be able to earn income like that. I think that is a good way of helping.
Because then they can take those skills and go start their own business.
That's right.
Okay.
Correct.
That makes sense.
Mm.
In the U.S., though, social programs, although very helpful, they can become overwhelming. And in the U.S., we've kind of seen this. We've become far too complacent. This is true of the U.S. and much of the West. Complacent and reliant on government. And exporting all of our blue-collar work as far as, making clothes, making chips for computers, that kinds of things. And now we're sometimes seeing the struggles with that, the repercussions of our laziness. Zambia has kind of fallen into that a little bit with many of the roads and infrastructure being built by the Zambian government and or the Chinese, which hats off to them. They seem to be everywhere building things. How does Zambia dig itself out of that hole?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Developing that mentality of depending on a total dependence on the government. Total dependence on the government will fix, the government will do ABCD. And I live in Meanwood, and Ndeke is a new suburb. And we've got some of our roads are terrible roads. And We have come up. I personally initiated a program to develop the roads in our area, not depending on anything to do with government.
Yeah.
We come together and say, guys, let's put this. But you find that many of our friends in the community, they would come up and reject the idea to say, are you a government? We should leave this to the government to do this. We don't have to do this. And so that mentality should be addressed.
Yeah.
Always being depending on the government to do something.
Is that just laziness?
I think not just laziness, but it's also something to do with the upbringing.
Okay.
And mentality that has been, like a default,
Yeah.
so to speak. We are used for someone to help us, even on something we can do for ourselves. You find something which is wrong on the road, you leave it because there will be a program. People will come from the government or from the municipality to come and deal with it.
Yeah.
That kind of mentality, and then we litter things, just like that, which is terrible.
It's quite bad.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time picking up litter.
Yeah.
So what? Obviously, not great. How do we, mentality-wise, how does that change?
Yeah, I think the idea of creating a conducive environment for entrepreneurship, innovation, and also private sector development can actually help. This involves reducing bureaucratic red tape, improving access to financing for small and medium-sized enterprises.
Removing what? Sorry.
So I said this involves reducing bureaucratic red tape, improving access to financing
Red tape.
for small and medium-sized enterprises, and investing in skills development and technology adoption to enhance productivity and competitiveness, encouraging local ownership and participation in infrastructure projects can also help mitigate reliance on foreign investments. And that can actually help. I think it all starts with a change of attitudes, change of mentality. There should be a radical change to how we develop ourselves rather than relying on others who will come and help. There are so many things we can do ourselves, so many we can do ourselves without relying on foreign help or something like that. That's mentality. I think we should start from there, and then running away from the motto of saying, had the motto of saying, had it not been for someone, I would have been very far. I would have been for me not getting this particular help, I would have been very far. So we can break that cocoon, come out of the comfort zone, and be able to do things that we can manage to do.
Yeah. Is there any level of that problem that is connected to confidence? Like, I don't think I can. Even if I wanted to build the roads, I don't think I could. And so I'm just going to leave it to the government because I don't know what I'm doing.
To some sense, yes. I think to some sense, it is that kind of, someone has been already, forced to think in a default way to say you can't. The government will do. You can't because of ABCD, and then also it is the human being by nature. We don't always want to come out of our comfort zone. When you've been there for many years, you've been in a comfort zone for many, many years, you've been born and brought up in that particular. So you tend to think when you break that situation, you will probably die, or maybe you'll fall into some other problems. That has been also a problem. We should always teach ourselves to confront our fears.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, and be able to get out of the situation we are in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. To that point, many Zambians are extremely industrious, extremely hardworking in their zone, but that doesn't translate to a lot of wealth. How do they not only work hard but also work smart?
Yeah, sorry. Okay, that's the question. Yeah, okay, anyway. You'll be able to edit this.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Let me see if you have already addressed that one. I think I did. Okay, that's the one I was talking about. Okay. Okay. So I said I said that Zambia can break free from dependency on government and external investment by fostering a conducive environment for entrepreneurship, for innovation, and private sector development. And as I said earlier on, so this involves reducing bureaucratic red tape. That's what I was answering
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
question. Yes.
I think I'm more curious about, like, so I'll give an example, maybe that'll help.
Yes.
There's several people, many people I've seen, kind of the sellers that drive by, with the loud microphones, and they're trying to sell a battery or gum or something like that, but they're not. None of those people ever seem to sell enough batteries to to be financially independent or successful. They're always having to do more to sell more batteries, right? So how does Zambians shift that from I'm just going to work really hard selling gum every day to, okay, well, maybe I can sell something a little more lucrative. Maybe I can work a little smarter so that I don't have to sell as much gum. I can spend more time selling something else that then means I have free time to spend more time with my family or whatever it is. How does that mentality shift?
Yeah, I think the shift of mentality, the bottom line is education. People need to be educated. Educated in how do they become more productive in everything they are doing by running away from doing the same things every day, again and again, and getting the same results. Education is very important to help them push the comfort zone because something has become, as I said earlier, this is it's an activity, it's a business the person does every single day and arrives at the same results all the time. So long as it's able to get something on the table, they don't think of growing their business, they don't think of thinking other avenues of changing. I think it's a matter of first and foremost education, and then also at times it's very difficult to educate people by words. Sometimes the government comes in and pushes them out of the road, and then once someone is out of the road and then they are pushed in a corner and squeezed, and they begin to think properly. Because some people, unless you offend them, they'll never develop. They'll never think otherwise. Okay. So some of them, it's a very good approach to just educate them and teach them a better way of moving out of getting the same things and getting the same result. But some of them sometimes is to push them using some kind of force.
You got to shake them up a little bit.
Yeah, to shake them, and then they should probably be able to begin to think that I can do these things in a more different way. That's what I said. There should be a conducive environment that will actually enable people to be productive, to be innovative, and to be entrepreneurs so that they may begin to think out of their box. Not because everyone is selling gums or therefore let me do the same thing. And yet there are so many things people can do when they begin to think in a more smarter way. Even the same product, you can actually develop other way of developing and also growing that business. I think education is very important.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah, and shaking them up as well. And,
yes.
You have to survive or die.
That's right.
The necessity is the mother of invention and all that. Two questions from that, and then we'll kind of talk about what role ACU plays in that education. So first is, how does Zambia, the West has obviously, I think, done this quite well. And now but at the same time, we're struggling with the idea that we think we did this all ourselves, the pride of self-independence, self-reliance, that kind of thing. So first, how does Zambia not fall into that trap as they're growing, as they're increasing, their physical, their monetary wealth? And second, how does the U.S. get itself out of that?
Let me start with Zambia and see whether I can be able to address the U.S. part of question. To
Fantastic.
address the issue of working hard but not smart, Zambia can focus on three things. How to get all the three things. The first one is promotion of entrepreneurship, skills training, and business development initiative that emphasizes, as I said earlier, on innovation, efficiency, and value creation. That's the first way I think we should probably be able to avoid falling into that. There should be promotion, of the things I've mentioned. So entrepreneurship, skills training, and business development initiatives that will be able to emphasize all of these things. The second thing, the second way that Zambia can actually be able to focus on is encouraging culture of lifelong learning situation. So the culture of lifelong and continuous improvement can empower individual to adopt smarter working. Okay, so we shouldn't stop learning. So cultivating the idea that I need to learn more and improve more. I need to go beyond what I've already done. Should be a lifelong process,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Don't
So
stop
that-
in school.
Yes. So we should always continue thinking in those lines.
How does
Yes.
Zambia stay humble, though, as they achieve more economic success? And remember that, this is a gift from God.
Yes. So Zambia can achieve sustainable economic growth while remaining humble. First of all, number one, by recognizing the contributions of all stakeholders, including God's providence and including natural resources that God has put in place in Zambia, including the effort of the people of Zambia. So we should recognize that the contributions of others. And the second thing, Zambia should also embrace a mindset of stewardship, accountability, and gratitude. Can help foster humility and prevent the temptation of arrogance and self-reliance, like many other countries,
Yeah.
like the U.S., for instance.
Yeah.
And lastly, fostering partnership and collaboration with international partners can provide valuable opportunities for learning exchange and also for mutual benefit. And those three things can actually help Zambia to stay humble. Recognizing the contribution of others, embracing the manship of stewardship, and also fostering partnership and
Interesting.
collaboration of others.
And why does fostering partnership help that so much in staying humble?
Yeah, very much. It's because we can't do. You cannot stand alone. So God has created us, as a community. We are a community. We can't manage as a nation, as individuals. God has given us that um, I can say it is part of a human being to depend on others in many ways. Partnership is very important. That's why God has created male and female. They can partner together in the mission God has given them. So that keeps someone to be humble in the sense that I can't do this by myself.
Right.
I can't do it. So I need to partner with others so that we can put our skills together, our ideas together, and be able to develop.
Yeah. And that's also the value of community,
Yes.
which Africa has very clearly embraced.
Yes.
Is you
Yes.
understand that this was not your own doing.
Yes.
This was, but then we get into the U.S. side of it, and the U.S. is not very community oriented. Obviously, there's some people who are in the U.S., but as a general rule, the U.S. is far more individually focused. So how does the U.S. get out of the hole of our pride that we've dug ourselves?
Yeah, again, I can still go back to the idea of learning from others, learning from others and trying to evaluate how far have we gone in terms of achieving greatness, relying on individualism, and how much others have actually gone and have achieved by being a community, so to speak. And then when you evaluate and you see the strength and the advantages of others, the U.S. should be humble enough to learn to embrace the values that others have been able to use to develop.
So it's similar in recognizing God's providence in giving us this mentality, and also the we have a very unique geographical blessing in that we have rivers all over the place.
Yes.
So it's similar to how Zambia does it,
Yes.
but
Yes.
just teaching people.
Yes, yes. Teaching people, help them to be able to see opportunities around them that God has already put in place, and not focusing much on our own strength, but be able to learn from others as well, and that can actually. So this is how God has actually created us: be able to be interdependent, and then be able to work in partnership so that we can achieve much. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And so you obviously talked about education
Yes.
as lifelong learning, teaching people to understand how to economically grow not
Yes.
only themselves but also their business. What role does ACU play in educating and creating the next culture shapers and also keeping them humble?
Yeah, that's a good question. So SU, the African Christian University, plays a crucial role in educating the next generation of cultural shapers by instilling in them a Christian worldview which is grounded in humility, discernment, and commitment to the truth. Very important, commitment to the truth. Now, through the classical liberal arts and sciences of the African Christian University curriculum, SU equips students with the knowledge, the skills, and values necessary to engage with contemporary issues and challenges while remaining humble before God and before others. But also by emphasizing critical thinking, ethical reasoning. This is what is being emphasized in the African Christian University. So people should be critical thinkers, and ethical reasoners, and the pursuit of wisdom. So ACU, the African Christian University, fosters a culture of humility that recognizes the limitations of human understanding and the importance of lifelong learning and growth.
Yeah.
Yes.
How does, and this is not in my questions, but how does that humility actually help people to grow more and become greater than pride?
Yeah, because what humility does, it keeps you in a situation where you always think you don't know. You need to learn more. Pride will create a barrier, will create a limit to tend to think you don't have to learn from others. You don't have to learn more, and you've already arrived in everything that you're doing. But the more you learn, the more humble you become. I think this is what I have come to understand over the years is that the further you know in learning something, the more you discover that you're ignorant and you still need to learn more and more.
Yeah.
That's where humility plays a very big role in there. So lifelong learning and experience it plays a very big role in cultivating that humility, in people.
Yeah.
Mm.
Interesting. Let's go back to kind of earlier in time. How did you get involved in ACU?
I became involved with ACU through the power of social media first. So I was in Cape Town, busy doing my master's in theology. And on social media, I saw the advert of something that was happening in Zambia, And I was actually drawn to the mission of the African Christian University of educating students from a Christian worldview and equipping them for life and vocations, and witnessing the transformative impact of SEU holistic approach to education. That one inspired me to become a part of its community and contribute to its vision and excellence in academic rigor, spiritual formation, and practical skills development. This is how I decided to, immediately after my master's in theology, I thought I should become part of this institution because I fell in love with the vision, I fell in love with the mission, and then I decided to apply and relocate back to Zambia and be part of this institution. This is how I became involved.
Yeah. So you liked the mission of ACU.
Yes.
What is that mission? And how was that were you there when they developed that? Or were you not and you just found it attractive?
Yeah, the mission of the African Christian University is to educate students from the Christian worldview in the contemporary and historic body of truths through the classical liberal arts and sciences for all spheres of life and vocations by exercising students' discernment, discipling holistically solely, and equipping with practical skills. I was not there when actually the mission of the African Christian University developed. But if you ask me how it did develop, it was developed through, first and foremost, a prayerful discernment, very prayerful discernment, and also the collaboration with Christian scholars and leaders. And also, thirdly, it developed through a commitment to excellence in higher education. It's from these fundamentals that the whole mission actually developed, grounded in the belief that all truth is God's truth.
Yeah.
The African Christian missions, the African Christian University mission reflects a holistic vision of education that integrates faith, learning, and service in the pursuit of truth, goodness, and beauty.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that it's I love that mission, and it's one of the reasons I was attracted to ACU in the first place. And all truth is God's truth, and not only that, but all truth is, even though it may not look like it, is discernibly God's truth. And it's our job to figure that out.
Correct.
And that's where ACU comes in, trying to help people figure that out.
Yes.
All truth is God's truth, right? And all truth is discernible. So then what is the potential of ACU in helping people to understand that and shaping the culture of Zambia?
Yes. The potential of the African Christian University is vast and far-reaching. As an institution committed to excellence in Christian higher education, the African Christian University has the opportunity to impact not only individual students, but also communities, societies, and broader culture by equipping students with a robust Christian worldview, critical thinking skills, and practical competencies. The African Christian University empowers them to become transformative leaders and influencers in their respective spheres of influence, contributing to the flourishing of society and the advancement of the kingdom of God. Of course, this is for the glory of God himself.
Yeah.
Yes.
As far as practically and in the short term, shaping Zambian culture, how does ACU what role does ACU play in that?
Yes, I think I've said that already. So in practically speaking, we can see already how we've implemented something like a work culture. The idea of the student labor programs.
I love SLP.
Yes,
so
the student labor program, it's another way of challenging our African culture of always thinking of work as a burden, thinking of work as a curse.
Yeah.
And forgetting that work was given to mankind even before the fall.
Yeah.
And then people should enjoy it and do it because God has given the mandate to keep the ground, to keep the environment and the universe properly. So the African Christian University has actually, so far by God's grace, managed to implement that in people's mind, in young people's mind, to learn to think that work is part of what God has given me, the image of God, and then enjoy that. So it's one way of changing culture. And when they come out of the university and go back to their respective places, and that mentality continues to think I should continue to be somebody who's busy at work.
Right.
And work is a blessing, it's not a curse at all.
Yeah.
It's one of the things. It's one of the things that we actually bless God for how the African Christian University will be able and is actually going to influence culture.
Yeah. Why do Africans think of work as a burden?
Yeah, the work as a burden, first and foremost, is because of the upbringing, the upbringing whereby to work you need, you know, the idea of you be rewarded, you will be given your a salary, so to speak. You're not doing a work as a responsibility that God has given you, and when there's no motivation in terms of what am I going to get out of this, people tend to think it's a burden because of the mentality of probably thinking to get something easy on a silver plate all the time. That has also contributed to think like that. But also, it's just a mentality of moving away from the scriptures, from understanding what work is all about. Tend to think is a burden, it is uh, and it's a punishment. And one of the things also what has contributed to the fact that many Africans have taken work as a burden is because in many cultures in Africa, work has been used as a form of punishment. When you did not do something, and then they will tell you, go and cultivate the ground, go and pick those small things up there and throw them in the bin as a punishment because you did not do well. So, and that has developed in people's mind to say work, it is a form of punishment.
Yeah.
It is a burden. It's not a blessing. It's something I tend to do because I did something wrong.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons that has made people to think in a negative way of what work is all about.
Yeah. Obviously, you said SLP is changing that, with SLP being something enjoyable
Yes.
that you can do for work, and it's not seen as a punishment.
That's right.
What was the idea behind SLP that kind of inspired or motivated the, we need to change this?
Yeah, first of all, it's our holistic approach to education. And the idea that God has given us the cultural mandate, as human beings, we have the cultural mandate of looking after the world that God has given us. So it goes back to the responsibility that God has given us as imagers, and that's the great motivation behind the SLP, the Student Labor Program. But also, it's because of what has been going on in African culture in terms of work. So work has been distorted, so badly to the point where people will take it as I said earlier on, as a burden, as a curse, as a form of punishment, and also the fact that many people in Africa have been depending on help and aid from others to the point where they don't see work as something they can enjoy. There are so many reasons, and then that have motivated that this should be part of our curriculum. It should be part of our lives because work is important, very important in many and various ways. That if we are to transform culture, if we are to change the environment God has given us behind, we actually need to value work that God has given us and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And not taking it as a burden.
Yeah. Absolutely. One more question about ACU. Is ACU a fundamentally evangelistic or discipleship-focused college?
Yes. The African Christian University is fundamentally on discipleship shift, this discipleship pillar. So prioritizing the holistic discipleship of students in the Christian faith, while also providing rigorous academic training and practical skills development. Okay. While the African Christian University values evangelism and seeks to share the gospel with students, we've got many students who come thinking that they are believers, they are born again Christians, and yet they've never experienced that. And through our mentoring programs, we have an opportunity to share the gospel with them. But the primary focus is that of discipleship. It's not that of evangelistic. It's that of discipleship and growing people in knowledge and wisdom and character, enabling them to live faithfully and effectively as disciples of the Lord Jesus Christ in all areas of life. That's the fundamental aspect that we actually find in our education. It's not necessarily mostly about evangelism, although evangelism, reaching out to those who are not, who think they are believers, students are coming, can also be tackled, but it's not the main focus.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. I talked to Pastor Califungwa last week, and he said that it's a good a mix of both.
Yes.
So similar, but I think you are probably a little more discipleship focused than he is, which is interesting.
Yeah.
We'll shift focus. You've been all over the continent for work, travel wise. What unexpected fruits did you see from that?
Yeah. What? We've moved to another question already. Which one is that?
Travel.
Travel now. Okay. Well, so I've put travel. Then we come back to the church.
Yep, travel, and then we'll go to the church, and that'll
Uh-huh.
be our final thing.
Okay, good, wonderful. Let me go to travel. Okay, good. Then come to church. Okay, can you rephrase your question again?
Yes. So, traveling. You've been all. We'll shift gears. You've been all over the continent of Africa for traveling.
Yes.
What unexpected benefits or fruits did you see from that you obviously didn't see coming when you started traveling?
Yeah, so many unexpected fruit in my traveling. As I said earlier on, I've never been outside of the continent, but I've been all over the beautiful continent of Africa. And some of the unexpected fruit is cultural exchange and cross-cultural learning. You know, engaging with diverse communities and cultures can actually broaden perspectives, foster empathy, and deepen the understanding on global issues. There are so many things that I used to think in a narrow way, but there's so many expected fruits for my traveling that because of that cross-cultural learning, and cultural exchange, and that has actually helped me to deepen my understanding on many global issues that we encounter. Another thing is professional growth and networking. Collaborating with colleagues from different parts of Africa and professionals from different backgrounds, it can actually spark the idea of innovation and then facilitate knowledge sharing and open doors to many other new opportunities. And then I've enjoyed many other opportunities,
Yeah.
because of my traveling. And another one is personal development, overcoming challenges, adapting to new environments, and stepping out of comfort zone can actually enhance resilience, confidence, and adaptability because of traveling. These are some of the fruits and expected fruits that I can say. And also spiritual enrichment,
Yeah.
witnessing God's work in different contexts, like you were in Liberia, you were in places like Mauritania, which is about 99.9% Islamic. And then you reach there, you see God has got his people. The church is there. The people of God is growing. And also they are reaching out to the Muslims with the gospel of the word of God. The word of God. So you see how the work is growing in South Sudan, in Senegal, some French-speaking countries, and many other parts, witnessing God's work, in different contexts, connecting with believers worldwide, and experiencing diverse expressions of faith. Because we've got a diverse way of expressing the faith we have in the Lord Jesus Christ in Venezuela. You might tend to think that the Zambian way is the only way of expressing the Christian faith because of lack of traveling. But as you begin to move from one place to another, then you enjoy different ways of expressing the faith we have in the Lord Jesus in our journey. Yeah, so these are some of the unexpected fruits from the traveling.
Yeah, it's been amazing to see the different things that God is doing all over the globe as I've traveled, and then coming here and staying here. Learning so much about Zambian culture and what God is doing with this people, and how this country is shifting to become, well, Lord willing, to become a Christian powerhouse in the future. What's your favorite place you've been to in Africa?
Yeah, the favorite I've been to in Africa. I've been to so many places, but my favorite place is Cape Town.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
it's such a beautiful place.
Yeah, so I traveled, in many places, but Cape Town stands out.
Is that just because you're from there?
No, I'm not from there. It's actually maybe because it's the place where I stayed a longer
Okay.
period of time than any other places, maybe. but also it's just got natural beauty,
Yeah,
and of course it's not just the natural beauty, but also the people. I met in South Africa. I mean, in Cape Town for many years, we came to form, to bond together as brothers and sisters there, and then I really miss the place, not just because of the place itself, but because of the people.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
And then, what would your biggest piece of encouragement be to people who are kind of thinking about travel and are not sure if this is the right thing for them to do, especially people who are younger?
Yeah, so for those who are unsure about traveling abroad, or maybe traveling in various places, my biggest piece of encouragement would be to embrace that adventure with an open mind and spirit of curiosity. Open mind and spirit of curiosity, because what travel does, it humbles us. It really
That is very
humbles.
true.
Yes, it really humbles, and then it helps us to clear some of the misconceptions that we have about certain people, and also some of the stereotypes that we've actually labeled on people. As you travel, you get to become humble, and you transform so many conflict within yourself and become, and also it promotes the whole idea of understanding others and be able to value them, and also getting to give everyone respect. So while traveling may present challenges and uncertainties, it also offers countless opportunities for growth, countless opportunities for learning and for discovery. You see, start by what I can tell those who are thinking of traveling. So you can start by researching destinations where to go. Maybe Cape Town,
Yeah.
or maybe maybe Zambia. You can come to
Yes.
Zambia.
Come to Zambia.
You come to Zambia. Seeking advice
Expect
from
no
seasoned
power.
travelers. And taking practical steps to ensure safety and preparedness. So remember that stepping out of your comfort zone can lead to some life's most rewarding experiences,
Yeah.
memories, and friendships. We're friends now.
Yeah.
You
There we
see?
go.
Yeah.
There's a YouTube channel that's main theme is seek discomfort,
Ah,
and the point of it is, in that seeking, when you're uncomfortable in that, in those moments, that's when you're gonna find the
yes.
things that you really love.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be in the places you necessarily thought it would be.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Speaking of things I've experienced here, and have been blessed to experience, Christchurch, Lusaka.
Mm.
So, you're a pastor of Christchurch, Lusaka.
Mm-hmm.
Um, first off, how'd you get involved in that church? Did you found it?
Yeah, so right from the inception, not from the beginning. So um, I and my wife actually, and my family, we are the founders. We started
There we go.
Christchurch Lusaka
Yeah.
a couple of months before COVID-19, But when we came back from South Africa, we really struggled to find a Bible-believing church. And then we were blessed to find LBC, Lusaka Baptist Church.
Fantastic church.
And then we actually saw lovely people. We felt really at home, and the community was just very much welcoming, and hospitality was great, and the preaching and the singing all great, and the children ministry, you're fantastic. And so we stayed for a year, and then after a year, that's how we started our growth group, a study group in our home, through the Gospel of Mark, inviting the neighbors and my family. That's how Christchurch Lusaka was born.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
why did you start the church? What was it? Is it because you're Pedo Baptist?
Yeah, so I came back from South Africa after my studies. I was part of the Reformed Evangelical Anglican Church of South Africa. And first of all, I did not want to come back home and start something independent, or I wanted to enjoy the Anglican community.
Mm-hmm.
But the Anglican community in Zambia was not the community that I really wanted to be part of. And so we thought of starting a reformed evangelical Anglican church in Zambia, not necessarily because I'm a Peter Baptist. I felt very much part of my brothers and sisters, the Baptists, the Reformed Baptist Church movement in Zambia. It has been a great source of encouragement to me, and we work together as partners. So it was born out of the mission that we had while we were in South Africa, and our sending church, St. Mark's, Plumstead, sent us already with that mission. When you relocate back, you can think of starting something in those lines. This is how it started.
Yeah. And what's the unique contribution that Christchurch Lusaka provides?
Yeah, so Christchurch Lusaka, CCL, may provide a unique contribution to the community through the theological teachings, emphasis on apprenticeship and discipleship. We are very much community oriented in terms of outreach. We've got some programs that would actually reach out to the community around, commitment, especially this one, commitment to the Bible, because our motto is God's words above all things.
Yeah.
So our commitment to the Bible and preaching the Bible and making people fall in love with the Bible, that's very unique in the sense that everything we do, even as we meet in our study growth groups, we emphasize that what is more important is the understanding of God's word. God has given us the Bible, and not our opinions, not our motivational speeches, but the scriptures, the Bible. Right. Yeah, that's very unique. It may also, and another unique thing is about, which is also worth citing, is the vibrant worship experience that we give to people and opportunities for spiritual growth.
Yeah.
And sense of belonging.
And that's also the importance
yes.
of CCL?
Yes, that's the importance of CCL as well, Christchurch Lusaka. Yeah.
So how do people get involved if they were not yet in Lusaka, or for those who are here currently?
Yeah, so you mentioned, before I ask this question, you mentioned something about being Peter Baptist, Peter baptism, or the practice of baptizing infants or young children, is rooted in certain theological interpretations that emphasize the continuity of God's covenant with believers and their children. So while Peter baptism may be less common in some regions or denominations, individuals who are like us, who adhere to this belief, we often do so based on our understanding of Scripture and based also on our theological tradition.
Yeah.
Yes.
I believe I'm also a Peter Baptist.
I
but
didn't know that.
Yes, I am. I'm at LBC right now because I don't have children. So it's not much of a
so when
not too bad at the moment.
When you have your firstborn baby in Zambia, so you bring your baby.
I will bring him there, and then he or she will be baptized there. Yes, right. So I'm a Peter Baptist.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yes, which is not very common here. How should people get involved in CCL?
Yeah, so individual may become involved in Christchurch Lusaka CCL through various avenues, such as attending our worship services. We meet at Golden Peacock, which is just along Kasangula Road. It's a hotel. That's where we meet there for an hour and 45 minutes from 9 to 10:45. So you may be involved by attending our worship services, by participating in small groups. We call those small groups growth groups, because that's where we believe growth really takes place there. And so far we only have 3 growth groups. One is in Miniwood Ndeke at my place, where we meet every Saturday. Another one is in Ngombe, a growth group where they meet on Fridays. And then another one, the third one, is in Matero growth group. So you can be part of the growth group one of these growth groups, and also by volunteering for ministry opportunities, or maybe becoming a member or members of this community. You can get involved. We at the moment we are still busy trying to grow our music. Our music team, people with skills of playing the instruments. They can be part of. They can come and join us and help us to grow our church in those areas. You see, so some may also join CCL after relocating to the area. You may relocate in the area and then you are looking for a Pedro Baptist church that is around the corner, and
CCL is there to help.
CCL is there to help.
Yeah. So what happens in the growth groups?
So in the growth group, it's a good question. What happens in the growth group is normally is the depth of the Sunday sermon. So a sermon is preached on Sunday, and there are questionnaires and are developed out of the sermon on Sunday. And then in growth groups, we sit and ask questions that we don't normally ask during the service on Sunday.
So further exploring that topic.
Yes, the same topic.
Okay, that
so
makes
right
sense.
now, for instance, we are doing series in the book of Jonah, and all our growth groups, they are in Jonah. So when the sermon is preached on Sunday, and then we have questions, and then we go a little more deeper into that in the week. That's what we do.
Fantastic. What is the number one piece of advice you would give to everyone watching?
Is to love God and Jesus and the Bible. Yeah, because the love of God and the love of Christ and the love of Scriptures, they are fundamentals to help us to love one another. There's no way we can claim to love other people when we don't love the Creator and the Lord who has saved us. And the advice I can give you in all of these is to continue exploring and looking for the truth and the fundamental truth of Scriptures. Do not be a victim of so many ignorant preachers and prophets out there. You can read the Bible by yourself, and you can seek guidance from those who've got experience, and then read the Bible for yourself and be able to get the truth and get involved. Be fruitful. Just be fruitful and useful on this planet. God has given us, a beautiful world that we can take care of. We can take care of this world God has given us, and by becoming fruitful and knowing the truth. Yeah. We
can fully experience it and fully, seek to understand it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on. Yeah.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
It's been fantastic. Is there a place where people can find CCL online?
Yes, we've got our website. It's www.christchurchlusaka.org.
Fantastic.
Yes, and also you can get all the details from there.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
You kept your Pedro Baptism belief for a long time until the last minute. I never knew that you were one.
Yes. Well, it's not come up as much as I would expect.
Okay.
It's been more talking about prophets and such. So.
Okay, brother. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming on. See you guys.
Bye.